You're welcome to Module 2 of building your volunteer-powered fundraising system. And we're starting with building your fundraising strategy and plan. Basically, building the blueprint that helps you raise money consistently and confidently. Now, why do you need a fundraising strategy? Like I said in Module 1, your fundraising strategy is your architectural blueprint. It is the very plan upon which everything will be built on. Your fundraising system will be built on. So without a fundraising strategy, you're most likely going to be chasing donors randomly. Without a strategy, you can't build a predictable fundraising system, and it helps you stay focused, consistent, and result-oriented. So think about it. You're building a house and you don't have an architectural plan. You're most likely going to have the hardest time ever building that house. And secondly, you're most likely going to build a house that you don't even want. And because of the many mistakes you're going to make along the process, you find out that the house may not even be worth it at the end. So you need your fundraising strategy. It's as important as the entire system. Now, this is what we're going to build together. We're going to build the entire fundraising strategy and plan together. And your fundraising strategy and plan encompasses a number of different systems that works together as one. So we're going to talk about the executive summary. We're going to talk about the fundraising goal and revenue projection. We're going to talk about the case for support, the fundraising audience and the process, the content and materials, the team roles and schedule, and of course, evaluation and reporting, because this is where you get to improve and, keep repeating the fundraising strategy. So what's the executive summary? The executive summary is basically the fundraising goal of the organization. How much you're looking to raise, what that money is going to be used for, and the timeline that it's needed. So it's going to be something like, this is my mission, this is what we're looking to raise, this is what we're going to be using it for, and this is the timeline we're going to need it. So your executive summary has to, of course, have a strong link to community impact. And of course, when you get the fundraising strategy and the plan manual, you're going to find exactly the formula to build every part of this process. So you don't have to think too much. Just follow me, because the most important part is you understand this process. If it's about building it, you're going to have the tools that's going to help you build it step by step, including even using AI throughout the process, because I want this to be very easy for you to be able to do. Once you have the executive summary, the second part of it is what we call the fundraising goal and revenue projection. So here, you want to be able to determine the different audiences. You have individual donors, you have corporate funders, you have grantors. How much you intend to raise from each of these people based on your fundraising goal. So if you're looking to raise $250,000, you're most likely going to be aiming at $100,000 from individual donors, $50,000 for corporate funders, and $100,000 from grantors. So you need to have that sort of revenue projection, because it's going to show you how to intensify your effort in these different areas so that you can bring the funding you need for your organization. Then, of course, the case for support. This is the why, because this is why anybody would want to fund your organization. Many people make the mistake of, just taking blank case for support or vague case for support. They're trying to just make it as appealing as possible, so they just make anything up. But the truth is this: people fund your why. They don't fund your how, they don't fund your features, they don't fund the name of your organization, they fund the why you do the work. So it's very important that your case for support describes the problem you're solving in detail. You could even go as far as describing the effect on the people or the community this problem has. And then you have to talk about the response you are putting together for this problem. And of course, you have to show what the difference the funding will make. The best case of support you would ever have is a list of people waiting for the transformation you have. So if you're saying 100 women actually waiting for that financial literacy program, or 100 homeless people actually waiting for a home, this is what gets people to take action. And this is why I would always say you must have a demand for the transformation you create, because this is the bridge. Your organization is basically a bridge. People do not care about your organization if you think about it very clearly. They care about the impact they want to make. As a person, I could have $1 million and I feel, well, I want to be able to empower, widows, because I saw my mom was a widow and she had a hard time. That's what I might want to put my money on. I'm not interested in an organization that helps widows. Well, if you do that, that's beautiful. But the end goal is really where people are interested in. Your organization is basically the bridge to reach that goal. So you need to be able to show that this is the demand. And this is how we at the bridge, because that's what your response is all about. And then, of course, what difference your funding will make. This is what is, in short, this is the most important part of your fundraising strategy, because if your case for support is weak, you're most likely not going to get funded. As I would always say, your case for support is basically the heart of it all. If I look at an organization's fundraising plan and I look at the case for support, I can tell if this organization will be funded or not. Now, once you've done the case for support, the next step is identifying your ideal funders. Now, you have businesses, you have individuals, and you have corporates or grantors. Now, these are basically the main types of funding audience. Of course, you could also have the government down there, but the government usually falls into grantors because they always give out money in terms of grants. You need to understand who are my ideal funders. This is really very important because not everybody will give to your organization. In short, I'll tell you 99 times out of 100 times, the reason you're struggling is because you're just reaching out to everybody. But if you know who your ideal funders are, people who have an already established reason to fund the organization, fundraising becomes easier. Fundraising becomes an invitation rather than begging. So you need to identify who are your ideal funders. And of course, we have put together questions that can help you narrow down who your ideal funders are. For individuals, who your ideal business funders are, and who your ideal grantor funders are. Because once you identify them, then it means you know exactly who you're reaching out to. It means you know exactly who your outreach is reaching out to. It means you know exactly who your content is talking to. And that's going to make your content a lot more heart to heart than just writing vague content. So we have to be able to define that. And of course, we've given you the tools to do so in your fundraising strategy and planning manual. Now, once you define the ideal funding audience, for each type of funding audience, you need to create what we call the fundraising process. This is because people only give to organizations they know, like, and trust. If you're reaching out to me for the first time and you're asking me for money, I'm most likely going to be pissed at you. Or if I'm not pissed at you and I feel like giving, I may just give you some money I can do away with and never come back. And that's why you get people giving, change and, and they hardly ever return. So you need a process that nurtures them, a process that builds trust, a process that builds credibility, so that by the time you're asking for their best gift. And when they give, they are willing to come back and give again and again because they have a relationship with you, because they already believe in your cause, because you've taken out time to build and nurture that relationship. So each audience has to have these 4 key areas: the know, the like, the trust, and of course, lastly, the ask, which is where you get to invite them in to become partners. That means you need a process that gets a prospect to know you, a prospect to like you, a prospect to trust you, and a prospect to give to your organization. So a prospect to know you could be an email. This is who we are, this is what we do, this is why we do what we do. A prospect to like you could be a previous impact you've created, asking for advice, providing resources. A prospect to trust you could be the work you're presently doing, testimonials of your transformation, right? Inviting them to an event, inviting them for office visitation, inviting them to be a part of your program. And then you can now go in to make the ask, which is an invitation to become a partner, an invitation to be part of the work you do. That's how you get funded. So you are going to need a process spelled out this way, clearly, for each of your audience. And not just the know, like, and trust factor. We're also talking about the follow-up and the stewardship. So for example, you've made the ask and the prospect does not give. What do? You have to be able to follow up with them, because at the end of it, the relationship is not a transactional relationship. You want to prove to them that indeed you're interested in a real relationship. So by following up with them, you prove that, and most likely you have lots of other people coming back to give, because like I always say, the money is in the follow-up. Many would not give at that first ask, but when they are followed up with, they usually give. And aside those who do not give that you follow up with, those who give, you need a stewardship process that stewards them, that shows them you appreciate the gift, that shows them you are being held accountable to that gift, that reports the impact back to them, and then gets them to give again and again. So you need that process well spelled out. And not just that process, as we go on, you'll find out that you also need the content for every step of this process well laid out, because this is what your volunteers are going to be using to help you raise money. Now, of course, like I said, the materials, the content, the story-based email, the impact visuals, the donation page or form, thank you messages, social media posts and updates, outreach email sequence, whatever that helps you execute the know, like, and trust factor. You need all the content and the proposals and the materials available to be able to execute that process. Of course, the people and the roles to execute the plan. Like I said, your volunteers are going to help you handle the know, like, and trust part. You, the founder, you're most likely going to be in charge of the ask, or the executive director. Why? Because you are the leader. People like peer-to-peer relationship. So you're going to be in charge of making the ask. If you have a process that does not involve you being physically present to make the ask, I would always say when it gets to the point of ask, make sure your volunteers report back to you so that you are following through on the ask itself. You have to be present within the system. Just because we're building a funding system does not take you off the process. It only means the process works for you and not through you. So it means you are going to have to lead the ask and invite to partnership, whether physically, one-on-one, or even if it's an automated process. You want to be aware when that process is going out to ensure you will have complete control of the system. And of course, your board members can come in as helping you steward donors. When you do not give it, board member calling in to say, we're grateful for your gift, or sending an email in to say we're grateful for your gift, it makes the donor feel held. It makes the donor feels appreciated, because if a board member who's most likely not a part of this process knows about this gift, then it means my name has gone through the system. So it's actually strengthens credibility. And then, of course, you're going to need a fundraising schedule. What's your monthly team is going to look like? What your daily outreach is going to look like? What your weekly outreach is going to look like? All that has to be well spelled out, because it's this schedule that's going to guide your volunteer execution. So you need a fundraising calendar to show for it. And of course, evaluation and reporting. You must evaluate the entire process. What's working? What's not working? Is our no section of the campaign working well? Where we keep that. If the like section is not making what we need happen, we have to improve on that. Is the trust section working well? We keep that. You have to keep evaluating these results. And of course, at the end, the most important results you must evaluate is how much did we raise by executing this system? How many new donors did we bring in? How are we able to, retain our donors, right? And what's the conversion rates per campaign? If you track each of these, modify your campaign to make sure these results are actually being done, you're most likely going to build a fundraising system that will be so successful that in less than a year, your organization will stay funded, and you could even raise money up to the next 5 years just in 1 year. So this fundraising strategy and plan is not just a plan you build and you put off in the shelves. This is a living system. It's a system you have to keep going back to. You have to keep reviewing and improving on. A system you have to work with. In short, your volunteers need to also have a copy of these so that they know what's at stake. They know the process they are executing, and you have to keep improving, because for every part that you improve on, you need to report that back into the system, because this is the system that the next batch of volunteers or the next batch of fundraising professionals who are going to come in will execute for your organization. So here's your takeaway for Module 2. Every nonprofit needs a clear strategy. You need to focus on 3 key audiences: individuals, businesses, and grantors. You have to build your process, making sure that you have a know, like, and trust and ask process, and of course a follow-up and a stewardship process. You have to create a structure so that others can execute with you. And then, of course, lastly, you must track and improve consistently. Like I said, we have the fundraising strategy plan and manual available to you that's going to help you build each step of this fundraising plan so that you can have your own fundraising plan that your organization can begin to work with. And of course, join our private community. If you have any question, we are available to answer you. So this is the end of module 2. We're going to be going on to module 3, where we'll talk about recruiting and training your volunteers. Complete the fundraising goal and revenue projection template that we provide you. Ask any questions, and we'll see you in module 3. Congratulations.